Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night, it is your boy, the Horrorlander, and today I'm going to be talking about a modern kids horror series that I'm starting for the first time. And this is one that I'm fairly familiar with because it's from a new author named Adi Aro, who's been making his way through kids horror YouTube. People have been reviewing his stuff. He's active on Instagram. He himself is a kids horror fan who reads a lot of his stuff. Stuff that I do, like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps knockoffs and alike. And he has a series of books called Bumps in the Night. Currently, the fourth book just released, so I thought, okay, might as well get into the hype and check out some of these books. And since I'm rebellious, I never like starting with a particular order. I decided that I will pick up book 3 in the series and give it a read. And it was Clowning Around. So today I'm going to be reviewing Bumps in the Night, Clowning Around, telling you a little bit about the plot, and then going into the positives and the negatives. And I gotta say, this was a pleasant surprise. I actually ended up really enjoying this book, and it shocked me because I wasn't expecting to like it when I was like 40% in, but everything clicked together and it ended up being a very unique and fun time. And by the way, he did not pay me. I did not get sent a book. He did not DM me or reach out to me. This is my authentic review for all you guys who are like, oh, you have contact with them. Oh, you know who he is. But I was going to be honest, and I was afraid that I was not going to end up liking the book because of where things were going in the beginning, but luckily it ended up turning around. So this will be a positive review, completely honest, and I will be talking about all the great things that are featured in this book that make it stand out, and you might be shocked and surprised yourself. So without further ado, no more playing around, except for the clowns that are playing around in the story. Let's get into Bumps in the Night, Clowning Around's review. So this book effectively opens up with your main character, whose name is Billy Zebo. Yes, last name Zebo. It's given a little nod to you, not so subtle nod to one of the most famous kids horror clown stories out there, which is Are You Afraid of the Dark's Laughing in the Dark. Um, so Billy Zebo is effectively kind of like a kid who's ignored in school. He's not really has like many friends. He grows up extremely poor. He lives on the poor side of the city away from many other people. And he usually gets into the type of issues that you get into when it's a lower socioeconomic status, threatening to get into fights, a lot of crime going around, being afraid that his mother's not always going to be able to support their lifestyle and living. So he's kind of down in the dumps, but he is excited because now effectively it's going to be some break time for him, and it's summer, and there is a carnival which is coming to town, an annual carnival slash circus which always stops by, and his mother always takes him to that, and they spend a lot of good time together. So you get introduced to his household. You see his mother, who affectionately calls him Bobo. She's very loving and trying to do for the best for him, and he's very loving towards her. But there is a little bit of a pest in their family, and that's the fact that she has a poor taste in boyfriends. She typically has bad taste with men, and the particular boyfriend that they're with right now, I believe his name is Nelson, but I'm not sure. I don't really remember, but I think it's Nelson. The boyfriend is fresh out of prison. He's kind of a scumbag. He's extremely toxic. He's verbally abusive towards Billy, often talking down to him, calling him a loser and clown. And he doesn't work a job, so he's a bum. He just eats junk food and leeches off the mom's money all the time. So he's not helping out their family at all. And you quickly find out that Billy hates his guts, and Nelson pretty much feels the exact same way. But the mom is oblivious and wants them to get along together. And eventually, Billy finds out that his mom might have a new financial opportunity that's coming their family's way, which is that she's been writing a book while she's had some free time in between her couple jobs. And now the book is finally done after a few years, and she's luckily stricken the opportunity to possibly have a book deal. There's a New York publisher who's inviting her with the chance to publish her book, and immediately both members of the family are shocked. Billy's excited for his mom and happy for her because he sees that, she's planning on using the money to get a new house and get them out of this bad part of the city and move somewhere better, effectively make their life better. But Nelson, you can tell, is excited for the wrong reason. He's figuring that this is a way to take more of the mom's money, leech off of them more, and Billy smells his parasitic behavior coming up. And this does lead to a problem because, yes, their financial situation is going to get better, but she has to go travel to New York to basically finalize and talk about this book deal. So Billy's going to be left in the house alone with Nelson, and the boyfriend is very upset. He doesn't want to deal with this brat. He's sick of him. Billy is sick of him, so they're like angry with this idea. And she even pitches that the boyfriend ends up taking Billy to the carnival instead of what they would normally do together. And that really upsets Billy because he loves spending time with his mom. He loves doing this traditional carnival thing. And now he has to spend time with this toxic piece of shit that's effectively in his house. You know, it's kind of a bad way to open up this summer vacation. But it has to be done. He understands this is a big thing for his mom. So he kind of sucks it up and deals with it. And as he's in this apartment, effectively kind of wasting away time before the carnival, he ends up having this strange phenomenon happen to him. And this is teased to have happened to him before, where anytime before something really bad is going to happen in his life, he gets this tremendous pain inside of him that starts flooding through. And in the mirror, he starts in the bathroom, getting these waves of pain. Feels like his body's being lit on fire and there's thorns in his stomach, and he's almost about to collapse and faint. And he's trying to find the medicine that his mom's used on him before when these kind of things happen, but he's not able to find it in the bathroom. So he figures that she might have it in her room. So he sneaks in while the boyfriend is sleeping into the room and tries finding the medicine. And when he gets to the closet, he then finds a clown mask and a clown outfit, which shocks him because he's like, why is this in here? He right away thinks it's super weird. And Nelson eventually ends up waking up. He gets angry, starts yelling at Billy, chastising him for sneaking in and snooping around, and they get into a bit of a fight, an argument. And eventually, when Billy's out sometime later, he manages to eavesdrop again into Nelson's business because he's having a conversation on the phone, and Billy's on the phone with his mother, kind of hiding back his true feelings and trying to make her feel reassured about him being home alone with Nelson. And she asks if she can go talk to him, so he tries to bring the phone to the room, but he hears the conversation and realizes that Nelson is actually planning some devious schemes and that his criminal background has not escaped him because he's planning, apparently, to pull off a bank heist with his friends, some of his prison buddies. And that's what the clown costume is there for, because over the conversation, he realizes that Nelson is effectively relying on these clown costumes because since the carnival came in, there's going to be a lot of clowns around the area, people dressed up for this circus carnival. So he can effectively have a better chance to get away with robbing the bank for all of its money and taking it. And he plans on getting the money with his fellow partners, splitting it, and then basically running away from Billy and the mother's lives. So this really infuriates Billy, and unfortunately, Nelson ends up again finding out that Billy's eavesdropping and actually almost physically gets violent with him. He almost punches and tries to knock out Billy to effectively take care of him. Even threatens to get his blick and shoot him. Yeah, this isn't, you know, if you had the feeling that this is like a Goosebumps story, no, it's a little different. But Billy ends up running out of there. And as Billy is lost downtown and effectively trying to find out what he should do now, should he return back to the apartment or find somewhere else to hide out, his anger effectively takes him over. And he ends up kicking a rock out of frustration, wanting to take revenge and hurt the boyfriend for all the negative things that he's caused and done to the family. And that rock ends up ricocheting and hitting into a car windshield, and the car crashes into like a telephone pole or a tree. And eventually Billy is like, oh my God, what did I just do? But he's still consumed with anger and he's not able to like pay attention. And eventually he quickly realizes that the car that he ended up hitting was not a normal car. It was a tiny little clown car that ended up crashing, and out comes this terrifying crew of clowns. I think the main one's called Clunk the Clown because he's able to just magically pull out weapons from nowhere, including a sledgehammer that he threatens to hurt Billy with as he smashes it into the pavement and it cracks apart. There's a couple other creepy ones. There's like this one girl clown who has like swirls around her. There's one that's got a slack jaw, so his jaw is just dangling like a ventriloquist dummy. There's one that's like dressed up as a toddler and tiny, but you're not sure if it's a grown man or grown woman. And then there's one that's like a little girl who looks like a cracked up porcelain doll. So a really freaky crew overall. And he realizes that these clowns are not going to let him go. They threaten that in order to pay for this, he's either got to give them cash or he's got to work it back. And they decide that they're going to take him to the carnival to their head honcho boss, the King Clown, and effectively make this guy a new part of their crew. And get initiated into it. And right away, Billy's like, I cannot do that. Like, what are you expecting? I don't have money, and I'm not going to be able to do this. You have to let me go. And that's when the clowns do something. They initiate a type of ritual, and effectively there turns into a body horror scene where that pain that Billy was feeling reoccurs and happens again. And this boiling liquid, crazy thing ends up coming out of his mouth and stomach and coating over his entire body like a cocoon. And he ends up being painted and dressed up as a clown. So yes, there is a aspect to the story that clowns are born out of misery and pain. So being a clown, particularly in this carnival, is an occult phenomenon. It's not a normal hire. Effectively, anybody who's dealing with pain and misery that's ruining their life and making them the butt of the joke in a lot of their aspects of their life, they can effectively become targets and preyed upon by this group of clowns in this traveling circus carnival. So this body horror scene happens where something inside of him erupts out and he gets transformed into a clown. And they end up taking him into the carnival, and there's some crazy stuff that happens, like they take him to the dunk tank and force him to play along, and when the dunk tank is not really that exciting as he's getting dunked in there, and they're basically telling him, like, you gotta play it up a little bit, they end up deciding to raise the stakes, and that's when they pull out a basically barrel filled with piranhas, pour it inside the tank, and then throw fresh pieces of raw meat to get them hungry and attracted. And eventually he ends up trying to escape, going to a fun house. He realizes that because there's an occult phenomenon with him turning into a clown, he has certain extra abilities, almost like what he saw with this clown crew when he first ran into him. You saw that one was able to manifest weapons out of nowhere. You know, this guy, Billy, is able to get some powers off of being this newfound clown. And they're hunting him down, and they're threatening to take him to their boss, who is hungry. And they find out, well, Billy finds out that the boss that they keep referring to might be a cult in nature himself, and he might be responsible for all these weird things going on at this carnival. That's effectively the story without me giving too much away. Overall, let's get into the positives, and then I'll go over some brief negatives towards the story. But overall, I'm going to get into a lot of fun stuff. The first positive to this story is the absolutely insane horror action that you get with the group of villains and all the stuff that they do. The group of villains here are extremely sinister and threatening. The main guy, Clunk the Clown, reminds me a lot of Zombozo from Ben 10, particularly with the way he talks and his dialogue and mannerisms. If you've seen Ben 10 and you know about Zombozo, you can kind of piece together the resemblance.
Cousin? Didn't you hear? She ran away with the circus! Nice try, kid, but I sell the tricks. I don't buy them.
On top of that, these guys have all types of freaky powers and capabilities. They cause a lot of crazy action that happens that fits the carnival gimmick, like I mentioned, with the dunk tank and the piranhas. There's also a funhouse scene where there's all types of illusions going on and the floor opens up and Billy almost ends up getting like drowned in a giant lake full of colored balls, a ball pit that keeps rising up and almost consuming him. And I forgot the name of the magician, but there's a magician in charge of there who has all different types of crazy abilities and capabilities, and he's working with the clown crew to bring him over to the King Clown, the boss. Billy ends up getting taken to this circus tent where he encounters the King Clown, and the King Clown is effectively named Beelzebub. Yes, called Beelzebub, a play off of Beelzebub. And it's not just a name. You get quickly familiarized and hinted that the entity is actually a demon and might actually be Beelzebub for all we know. There is something else demonic and otherworldly going on with the King Clown head figure, and that figure is responsible for these supernatural powers that are given to the clown, this weird type of ritual that clowns are born from. It's all due to the influence of the King Clown Beelzebub. And it's horrific. The design of the thing is horrific. You can look at the cover of this book and kind of get an idea. Really, really scary, wild stuff. And this story is not really like Goosebumps. It's not really like your typical kids horror, because when I was reading it, 40% into the book, when it was dealing with a lot of this boyfriend and family drama and this type of stuff going on, dealing with his socioeconomic status and all these other things, it did not feel like a Goosebumps or kids horror story. It was darker, it was more serious, it was more deep. It did not have your typical feel for that. And when we get to the second half of the book, which is just batshit crazy action, lots of horror action that you get, wild, crazy abilities and powers and things being shown, and the big climax scene and ending with how it resolves, you quickly find out that this is more so a EC Comics Tales from the Crypt mixed with kids horror. Book is effectively Tales from the Crypt presents kids horror. It is a comeuppance story. It is a story about revenge. It is extremely dark and messed up because effectively the clown, the entity inside of the main character, starts to take a sort of possession angle, a schizophrenic possession angle, almost like Venom from the Marvel universe. It's like another entity living inside of him and speaking to him that's now emerging because of what this other clown crew did. And in order to strike a deal with the King Clown, Beelzebub, to prevent Billy from being eaten, it is effectively the clown pointing in the direction of Nelson and the bank robbers and saying that you can take them as sacrifice instead. And by taking them, you should let us go as part of this deal. You're going to get a bigger meal and more tasty snacks out of those guys and scaring the hell out of them right before you eat them than dealing with Billy here and me. So that ends up going into effect, and this clown crew of Clunk the Clown and all these guys, including Billy, end up going to the bank and dealing with the bank robbers. And it involves this giant spinning circus top that effectively falls over the bank and casts the entire guys inside in darkness. Outside the windows, they just see darkness now. And in comes an explosion of fireworks, and the clown crew comes in with all types of weapons and crazy stuff. There's a scene of one of them having like one of those sticky hand toys that you can get from like machines. He throws a sticky hand onto the boyfriend's hand where he has a snake tattoo, and it's described that his flesh starts like simmering and melting, and the top part of the flesh where his tattoo was is melted off his hand, and out comes a real venomous viper snake. And there's a plot line about some body horror transformation where that snake is put to use. There is a spinning wheel of death where flaming pinballs, arrows, knives, all types of things are thrown at one of the bank robbers. There is like one of those sledgehammer machines where one of the guys gets tied up and Clunk the Clown brings out his sledgehammer and starts smashing into it to get the highest score, and the guy keeps going up. He keeps getting sent up by the impact and smashing his head against the top of the bell, and Clunk the Clown keeps doing it, and eventually he jokes that, hey, they should really give you a prize for this thing. I'm putting in a lot of work. And he eventually does a massive swing, and the guy goes up, smashes through the top of the machine, including the bell, and then is described to just collapse and slunk on the floor. So it's very violent. It's very horrific. And yeah, there's just a lot of great horror action throughout this book. And another positive is the body horror angle and the idea that becoming a clown is not your ordinary thing, in particular with this carnival. The head, demon, otherworldly figure that's running this carnival invokes this type of body horror where your pain and misery manifest into you being a clown, you being a type of entity now with these occult and supernatural abilities gifted to you by the King Clown itself. The other, scenes that you get basically imply that this is all effectively demonic influence without explicitly saying that, because it's still a kid's horror book. And it touches on the theme, subtext of your anger and misery clouding your mind and making you get into a lot of situations where you look like an idiot, you look like a clown, you look like a goofball, and that happens to Billy. And there's some implications. I don't want to get too much into the ending and stuff, but the idea that this is not something that you can just get rid of, you have to kind of deal with it. And there's a lot of thematic imagery about making deals with the devil and making certain contracts and trying to control certain things. And again, it's all done without explicitly saying that. It's kind of hidden behind some other words and some other imagery. So that's effectively all great stuff. It's what makes it feel like EC Comics and Tales from the Crypt mixed with kids horror. And the only real negatives I have towards the story is I did feel it was a little short. I felt like it ended a little too soon. I wish it could have been a little bit longer and we got some more kind of scenes with Billy and the clown crew, particularly just fleshing out the story just a little bit more, because I feel like it was cut off a little short. But still, felt like AC Comics story kind of just stretched out. And the stuff about the clown is a little vague. It is a tiny bit vague because you're not given like a full exposition. You're just given hints. So that stuff can be a little bit confusing in the beginning. And even towards the end, you don't know the extent of it. So taking some points off for that, this book still gets a 9.2 out of 10. It is a great book. It is a great read. It's lots of fun. So if you are going into this Bumps in the Night book and you suspect that it's going to be like Goosebumps or this other stuff, no. But if you're a fan of EC Comics, if you're a fan of Tales from the Crypt, if you're a fan of the Tales from the Crypt movies, you can go check out this story and effectively read it. That's all I got for today. If you guys enjoyed, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment down below, and stay tuned for more content to come. I am excited to read the rest of Bumps in the Night. Not sure if they all have this type of feel, but I was happy with the product that ADRO put out for clowning around. So, no more clowning around for me. Deuces.